Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Women's Leadership Council discussion on mental health, COVID fatigue, and finding support. I'm Cammie McBride, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences and Professor of Psychology at Roosevelt University. I'm delighted to be here today in observation of Mental Health Awareness Month. As a clinical psychologist and expert in adolescent development, family therapy, and developmental psychopathology, I appreciate the importance and timeliness of this conversation. The implications of the pandemic and other recent events, such as racial reckoning and the ongoing wave of civil unrest over the last year and a half, have had an impact on our well-being. We are fortunate to have a wonderful moderator and speaker joining us to share information and advice that we can take with us to move forward and feel good about ourselves. With that, I'd like to welcome and introduce our moderator, Chidima Anusiam.
Hello.
Chidima, hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful. And yourself?
I'm great. Let me introduce you. Tell everyone how wonderful that you are. Chidima has over 20 years of experience developing and coaching women to discover their true value and self-worth. She is a women's empowerment speaker, life after divorce coach, host of Author Chi Talks on YouTube, and the #1 best-selling author of From Glass Stone, where she shares her divorce and her transformational journey from pain to power. She has 10 years of experience as the CEO and lead designer of the Chianu International Women's Clothing line, and Chidima spent 2 years as the director of operations for the WOWWW Women's Ministry in Atlanta, Georgia. Chidima also has over 15 years of experience as a VP in banking and regional management. Currently, she is a VP Retail Network Planner for PNC Bank. Chidima, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for that warm introduction, Dee McBride. And it's a pleasure to be here and to lead this conversation with my very good friend, colleague, and Roosevelt alumna, Melisa Alaba. The Melisa Alaba, I have to add that. Melisa is actually the CEO of Vision Works Coaching and Counseling. She's a breakthrough coach. She's a speaker, published author, and the creator of Be Healed Transformation Process and a licensed counselor. Melisa is the author of Live Out Loud, 52 Ways to Reawaken Your Spirit and Live a Life of Purpose. She was featured in the movie 72 Hours. Her advice has been featured in Ebony Magazine, U.S. News, World Report, Parents Magazine, Redbook, ABC Online. I can go on, you guys. Let's just say accomplished, right? And for the past 20 years, Melisa has coached hundreds of women of color to work through deep trauma, heal their wounds, have life-changing breakthroughs, and to help them get to the next level. Melisa is an advocate for women's rights, equal pay, and financial liberation for women. Melisa, welcome, and thank you for being here with us for this much needed conversation around mental health and well-being.
Thank you for such a warm introduction, and thank you to the Women's Council, to Roosevelt University, and to the alumni community, for putting this on. We're just so excited about this topic and to just dive deep into it today.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned yesterday, there's a high anticipation around the discussion today. And there's so many women out there saying, I need this. So Melisa, I know that you're going to add so much value to the women and tuning in and men tuning in today. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to also share, for those of you that are tuning in, feel free to put your comments in the chat. We want to hear from you. Melisa is ready to answer your questions and for us to address your comments as well. So please feel free to put your comments in the chat. So COVID-19 has had a significant impact. Come on now, we got to breathe on that.
Yes.
It has changed the way we do life. As women, personally speaking for myself, workload increased at home. You're now having to be the cafeteria lady because your children are home from school and the principal, and you're at work and you deal with your husband and your marriage. And it's just so much. So I want to hear from your perspective, how has COVID-19 affected women?
Wow. So, all the things that you just talked about, right? And I think the big part is really help women to identify that they need better boundaries and better systems in their life. So it's really illuminated the idea of gender roles, gender inequality, It has made women think more about work-life balance. It has made women think about the income that they were currently bringing in, and how quickly and easily that income was ate up in this type of situation. It's illuminated so many different things. Even, like we started out with talking about the racial disparities and all of these different things. So this has been like a heightening since time period that really has allowed us to see so many different things.
And I'm sure you're seeing so many different things with your clients as you're coaching them and counseling them. And so what has Vision Works, because you're the CEO of Vision Works Coaching and Counseling, what have you done specifically to adjust to these unique needs that we're now having as women dealing with COVID-19?
So I think so first of all, when this first happened, no one thought, a year and a couple months now, that it was going to last so long. I think a couple months into it, we definitely knew that we needed to put some more things into place to really support women and really support the people that we were seeing. One of the things was creating a sister circle. So I took some time with that and putting that together. But I knew that women needed a community in which they can come and they could talk about how they were feeling. They can express to women who look just like them all of the things around, like we just talked about, issues happening at work, issues happening at home, and separating those spaces, relationship issues. Because again, with the isolation that we all are a part of, still a part of, but it's shifting. That was like really big. It's just having that particular space. The other thing, I had probably started this a couple years ago, but we really, really realized how big this was, is that women of color wanted to see women who looked like them in treatment. That wasn't always the case. I would say probably 5 years ago, that really wouldn't have mattered so much as it was just getting the help. But because so many issues were around Black Lives Matter, were around things happening in the workplace, were around the shift of mindset, people started to say they wanted someone who had the experiences that they had, who could understand, who could hear, who could feel. So that really, sparked us to hire more clinicians. But all practices that I know of, no matter who their population that they serve, this was a big period of time when we had so many more people coming into treatment and into counseling, which was great.
Yes.
Absolutely great, because a lot of the issues were issues that were already existing issues, but because of this situation, it heightened those issues. So it's really great to have people saying, hey, I want to do some work on me now so that I can get things back into alignment.
I love that. And I just wanted to add to that, just for women to be patient with yourself. I mean, COVID-19 has created some unique challenges and unique stressors that we didn't really have to deal with. We didn't have to be mom and boss and coworker all in one day in the same hour, right? And so just being okay with, sometimes where you're not so perfect and wearing all of those roles at the same time. And like you speak about, Melisa, so many times, is being able to introduce pleasure into your life. Pleasure meaning, what are some of those things that fill you and fuel you, even if you have to get away for 5 minutes from the kids and to tuck yourself in the closet and you have your favorite ice cream by yourself, right? Like just those moments where you can just give back to yourself, because we're constantly pouring out and doing everything for everyone. And so I definitely wanted to add that piece. So thank you, Melisa.
Absolutely. No, I love what you said. And really, like, that pleasure piece has to be something that we give ourselves permission to have. Years ago, I had a website, and I don't have this personal website anymore. Might be coming back though. But on my personal website, I had like this column where I talked about guilty pleasures. Because for women, like, having simple pleasures such as taking a hot bath or reading your favorite book could be like this guilty pleasure, because we've put all this pressure on ourselves to be like you said, mom, CEO, wife in charge, whatever the case. We're managing so many different roles. So I really feel like 2021 is this place where we can start talking about normalizing real balance. Normalizing women going for more, like not just like finances is so big, and I talk about that, but going for more in each area of their life, going for more help, getting more support, having more fun. Like, this literally is the year where, like, we have to put some new boundaries around our desires and our wants so that we could be better.
Yes, I think that's well said, going for more. I don't know anybody that would object to that. I can use more of those good things. So there's a question coming in from Kimberly. Kimberly, thank you for our first question. And she just wants to know, how would you advise professional working mothers who may feel grateful for the opportunity to work from home, but then they're exhausted from juggling, the work-life balance? And that was actually our next question. So thank you, Kimberly. So how would you address that concern, Melisa?
One, I would say, no, it's okay to get help. So I've had clients where we worked through this very issue. One of my clients, was like, oh, she didn't want to bring anybody in during the pandemic. She was really scared about that. So here was the options. Do you want to be burnt out, or would you like to go for some help? And so she was like, I think I want help. So what do we need to do? So she hired a nanny. For clients who may not have money, because a lot of times when we hear nanny, we think, oh my God, that's going to be so expensive. But there were so many services created out of this time, right? So places like Sitter City, places like, I can't think of another one. It's so many different sites that you literally can hire someone for several hours a week to come in and help. Yeah. Or as now these mask mandates have been removed or about to be removed, and we're slowly transitioning into post-COVID, starting to think about daycare again, starting to think about getting help. But I think one of the biggest things, especially for women, all women, is we have to have some boundaries about our needs and our desires. And I definitely will say this as a woman of color. White women have had this down for some time. Okay. So a lot of white women that I know, they have the nanny, they have they have the housekeeper. Black women have been conditioned to do it all the time. And so we're learning to ask for help outside of our family unit. So are other women of colors, of different colors. We're learning to ask for help outside of our family unit. And sometimes asking for help outside of your family unit or outside of yourself feels like you're not enough, like you're not doing all the things that you should be doing as a mother, as a woman, as a worker. But I would definitely tell you, we do ourselves a disservice when we do not get the help that we need to thrive in all areas. It's literally impossible to be like an A1 employee, and then you're also trying to feed your child, hand them coloring books. Like your husband is like, hey, what are we going to... So creating boundaries and some systems around how you give your time and when you give your time are really big. And I know, like for me, and this is my last point, so we can check and see if there's some other questions. But for me, it really is being present in the moment with the thing that I'm doing. So if I am at work, I need to 100% be in work. I need to be able to close that door and focus on this. And then when I'm with my kids, and I do have children, you guys, my youngest is 9, my oldest is 25, about to be 26. I have 2 grandchildren. She has a husband, 2 beautiful kids. And then my middle daughter is in college. But when I'm with them, I'm really with them. So that's one of the other things too, and dedicating time just to be that mom. So for me, it's the weekends. You are not getting my weekend time. Nobody. That is the time in which I want to be able to spend with my family. That is the time in which I want to be able to revive myself, re-energize myself, have some play, have some fun. I do believe 2021, this time, especially this summer, we're going to see people getting back into hobbies that they haven't had a chance to play with and be into. We're going to see people learning something new. And we're going to see a whole bunch of people just running outside, happy to see their friends and their families. And of course, jumping on planes, visiting people as soon as they possibly can. So I think that creating balance that is long lasting and thinking about what you really needed from this time is a way to now put that into place permanently and being okay with it.
No, that's good. It's good. And so I mean, this is a great segue. And again, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to chime in anytime. We definitely want to hear from you. And so that's a good segue into, asking for help. There's a saying that says, check on your strong friends. Okay. Because especially as women, and we can get into African-American women too, but women, we are known as strong. I mean, we're the only species that can push out a whole human being and still survive, right? That's strong. Okay. So there are times where we have these strong friends, we have these people around us that always seem to have it together. They always seem to have a good handle on their life, on their kids and all of that. And so we asked them how you're doing. They said, I'm fine. Everything is well. And we may be that strong friend. That may be us, right? What are those physical and emotional signs that we can look out for people like that may actually be having some mental challenges, but don't know how to share what they're really going through? How can we kind of discern what's truly going on?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things for a lot of people is when they find that they're no longer passionate about things that used to energize them. So I see a lot of the clients that I see are leaders, they're entrepreneurs, and they're coming back to me to get their life back on track or to get out of overwhelm. But a lot of times what happens is the overwhelm comes because they lack balance. They're doing too much. And when you're in overwhelm, you feel like nothing really is important anymore. Nothing really matters. You notice that you don't have the passion for the projects that you once had. You're not getting things complete. You're having difficult time sleeping. Sometimes you have a difficult time eating. Sometimes you are eating too much. Sometimes you're sleeping too much, but your patterns are off, so life is just not as invigorating or as fun or as great as it once was. And you feel like you're doing more, like you're always in do mode instead of receiving mode. So a lot of times people will say they feel depleted, a sense of burnout. Those are big signs that we need to reorganize some things, and you may need to get some support around how to do that and what it is that needs to shift. Because a lot of times I meet folks and they don't know what it is that needs to shift. They just know it's all out of sync at this point. So you may be coming to therapy for general anxiety, like I can't get out of my thoughts and things like that. But as we dig deeper, we see is really like some systems that's been set up that are no longer working, boundaries that may have been crossed, and we need to just reestablish some things.
Yeah, I think that's great. I also wanted to add, I mean, me and a coworker of mine were discussing this last week, is how can we assess the mental well-being of a person without saying, how's your mental well-being, right? It seems a little invasive. But so we thought about, we ask this question every time we meet someone, how are you doing, right? Yeah. And the response is, I'm fine, right? Yes. And it's just so, if you think about it, it doesn't really capture how the person really is doing. So swapping the word doing with feeling, we could get maybe more genuine responses and insight into the well-being of a person. How are you feeling today? I think will land even better and sound more genuine. And it'll also make you feel, as the person that's asking, more intentional about really wanting to know, right? So even that little tweak can also help us assess, what our strong friends could be going through. Right?
Absolutely. I think another thing too is, in terms of our strong friends, all of our friends, is the ability to sit in something with someone, which is generally why people will go to a therapist, seek out a coach. Not because they're looking for a best friend. I had someone who said that to me, like, I've been seeing you for a while and I think I need to stop now because I don't want you to turn into my best friend. And I'm like, do you feel like it's best friend? And then she's like, no, because my best friend would agree with everything I'm saying. Does that happen here? No. We seek out this type of support because we get the guidance, right? And we're allowed to sit in our feelings. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when we share with our friends that we're going through something, especially in our community, we will shut that down. Like, oh, you'll be fine. Just pray on it. You'll get through it. So we have given them the answer and not allowed them to express their true feeling. So what happens is the next time you ask me, I know you really don't want to know. You want what I normally say, so I give that to you.
Yeah.
So it's the reconditioning of our thought process around it and allowing the person to speak and sit in with them. Sometimes it's the second question. It's the follow-up question. How are you doing? And then followed up, how has this been for you, this whole pandemic thing?
Mm-hmm.
That also sets the tone for like, yeah, it's been, that type of thing. So I think that is really important.
I like that. And then also, how can we support you? How can I support you? Like you said, sitting with them in that, not just listening, but actually, putting some skin in the game and really rolling your sleeves up and helping them. So I think those are really good points, Melisa.
Yeah. The other point before we move on, because I do say it's a nice question here too, is I want to just say, I think the third thing is, so again, we're going to sit in it with them. We have to normalize seeing a coach and normalize seeing a therapist, which that totally is happening for the younger generation. I definitely see that with my millennials. It's like, oh, I want to see my therapist today, or I'm talking to my therapist at 10 o'clock. So I have a lot of college students that we see and so forth. But for, those 40 and over, it may not be something that you talk about with someone else. And therefore, they don't feel like they don't know that that's okay. So I think the more we say, oh, yeah, I worked with a therapist for this or that, it makes it normal and it makes it as a support person. I see myself with a lot of my clients as they have their regular doctor they go to, they have their nutritionist, they have their chiropractor, they have their massage therapist, and they have their breakthrough coach, a part of their team of wellness.
I think that's amazing. That's an amazing point, is to have your therapist as part of your dream team, to help you reach your dreams by being stable in every way, shape, and form. So yes, thank you for that insight. So we do have a question from Mary, and it's kind of going back to our previous conversation. How do you disconnect from work when you work from home? It's a valid question. I from experience, I have my daughter braiding my hair and I'm on a conference call, right? So how do we do this, Melisa? Help us.
I love it. I think you have to be very intentional about creating different spaces in your home. So you may have a specific space where you give your work. So like a private office, or for me, I was working out of my living room that had like shutters on both sides from the dining room and the entranceway, because that was the area I could find. But then when the day was over and I was done seeing my clients or what have you, then I would come out into the rest of the house, a lot of times transitioning with a walk outside. So just having this nice walk outside that the day has ended, playing music in the kitchen. Alexa is like my favorite thing, okay? Alexa, play my favorite song. I love it. That's like, literally I say that every single day, right? And she has the lineup. It's coming. You know what I'm saying? Everything is coming. It's about to be evolved. So that dancing, that laughter, the day is over. And I think as a clinician, for over 20 years, I've trained myself to transition from clinical work, that, tough stuff of hearing stories and helping people process, to being able to stop, to make a hard stop and then step into my own life. So I think that's something that people can definitely put in. That might be mindfulness meditation. That might be going to sit on a sofa and taking 10 minutes and doing like, a meditation, or some deep breathing. But definitely having a point where we cut one thing off, probably change the visual and the location within our house or to outside, and then focus on something that's going to allow us to flow back into our regular life.
I love that. So just being able to create different spaces for your different roles and know how to transition between. I think that's very well said, Melisa. Thank you. So
absolutely.
We talked about mental health in general and women in general, but can we dive a little bit deeper and talk specifically about African-American women? Because there's a unique challenge when it comes to African-American women, or the African-American community as a whole, and the stigmas that exist around mental health. So, can you please shed light on some of these stigmas and kind of where do they come from? Why do they exist?
Ooh,
I know, so it's a whole different show for this. We could be here all day.
But I think that, when we think of the whole body of psychology, and again, I'm an alumni of Roosevelt University. I feel like I've had some of the best education that you could possibly have to be able to go out and do this work. And I had great professors and teachers and so forth. And of course, I had my own experience, right? But I think in this line, in this movement of the Black Lives Matter, going through this past year where you had, deaths like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and so many others, right? And then people really understanding that multicultural doesn't mean anti-racist. It's brought up a lot of feelings about, even like from the past, trust. So it's like, how do I trust or land over my stories when at some point in our history, if I were to do that, I might have lost my children. If I were to do that, I might have been committed against my will. I think about my mom who's in her 60s, and growing up, I used to hear my mom say she was nervous. That was like a big thing. Like when something would happen, it's like, I'm so nervous. Now I know, I know that she had anxiety, but that wasn't something that she was going to share with someone because she was afraid that they would give her something that wouldn't allow her to function like she should function. So there's a distrust of systems. There's a distrust of systems that weren't created by us, that were created by other people, and may have literature from the past that said that we were not equal to or like someone else, right? That we thought differently. So I believe that, as we start to understand how needed and helpful this is, older generations will jump in, and they're starting to make changes and shifts as they see the younger generations doing that. So younger generations don't have the sense of distrust that older generations have. We saw this distrust during this time of COVID when we were looking at vaccines. And because of things like the Tuskegee, the syphilis project and so forth, where, folks were given this supposed vaccine, but it wasn't a vaccine, and they wind up with all these different things. So because of that history, you have a distrust for systems, So when someone says you have to do something, it's like, no, I don't have to do anything. So literally re-educating and having enough people of color who are actually providing a service, who are a part of the community and a part of the solution, I think those are the things that help to transition folks who weren't accustomed to this way of being or talking to someone that's not a mom or relative or a pastor. To be able to say, let me try it. During COVID, I had more 60 plus clients than I ever had. And the interesting thing was they did not bring themselves. Their younger children brought them to therapy. And it was like, my mom has been dealing with this for so long, or my dad has been dealing with this for so long, and we feel like he or she needs that support, and we're here to do it with them. So I just feel like, community-wide, one of the questions, like when we talk about the gay community, when we talk about, a transgender community, when we talk about different communities that are outside of ourselves, that are marginalized, you can even think of like white women who are now looking for inclusion, just so many different things, right? When we talk about things that are outside of ourselves, sometimes having someone else on your team who shares those same experiences can help with the transition of thinking different about a particular thing. And so I feel like as a group, as a country, we all are in this transition of thinking about our roles and thinking about how we talked about things in the past and how we can make it better, like how we can all grow from these experiences.
I think that's well said. And I work for a wonderful organization that, during the George Floyd death and that whole, movement around, Black Lives Matters and all of that, we have meetings that we pulled up with our teams to talk about how were we feeling, a temperature check for the employees of color. And I just thought that was such an amazing forum because mentally I was messed up. I was emotional. I was having a hard week, and just being able to go to work and that being acknowledged and saying, do you need a mental health day? Right. And I think those are things that organizations can continue to do to continue to support, the mental well-being of our employees of color and our employees as a whole. So.
Absolutely. And what you just talked about did not happen in so many companies. So coming from a group that's seen as marginalized, and I use that word just in this forum because it's not one that I use every day. Obviously, you don't walk around thinking I'm a marginalized person, but that's how other people see you because you're not of the majority, right? But coming from a group that is seen that way, most workplaces looked like another regular day, and most people who looked like me or who looked differently had to just go to work and put on a face. So again, that is what typically has always happened. I think as we moved into not just talking about diversity, not just talking about multicultural workplaces, but getting into anti-racist education, meaning like we look at our historical stem of how all of this got started, and now as a company, as a people, how we can make some shifts, then we start to actually see real change. And I feel like that is starting to happen. We're like through this Black Lives movement, we saw a lot of companies. One, the first thing was they gave money to certain things.
Yeah.
Then you saw folks of color coming and saying, hey, we don't want just money piled on this. We literally want to see what type of changes are you going to make, systemic changes for the future. Because otherwise it does nothing. So I think it's an enlightened age. I pray that it continues. And I've also had a lot of colleagues, white women colleagues. I'm a part of this one organization, We Should All Be Millionaires, who took anti-racism training, like literally wanted to start to debunk some of their thinking behind some of their actions that they didn't even know that were embedded in them because they had never looked at a lot of the history. They had never took the time to look at these different things. And so now, instead of them saying to their Black colleague, hey, what can I do differently? They now are thinking in taking this education and learning, I don't need to ask them. That's putting extra pressure on them. What I need to do is educate myself and see what I could do differently. And that's like the breath of fresh air that we all need so that real change can actually happen.
That's so powerful. So not just inquiring, but taking the action behind it to bring about real change that makes a difference. I think that's phenomenal. And so I did want to get to this question, and I'm going to come back to this topic from Kimberly. What is the difference between a therapist and a coach? I'm currently seeing a therapist, but I've been feeling like I need someone to advise me as to how to move past my feelings in a positive action. So I'm a coach, you're a therapist. So Melisa, you want to jump in and share that difference?
So here's the thing, you guys. I really always say, like, from the therapist's point of view, it really is the lens in which they lend to their particular craft. But for the most part, the major difference that most people would say, like when you look at ICF regulations, those are the people who are the guiding principles, guidelines for coaches. What they would say is that if you're in this healing phase, so if you need healing, you're having high anxiety, certain things, depression, you may need some medication, all these different things that are like really deep, then that's not for your coach. Your coach is that person that's going to take you to your next level, and generally the person that you want to talk to after you get on par or get balanced. Now, I say that to say, I think the caveat is if you're someone like me who is a therapist who studies positive psychology, right? Because that's really what coaching is that I can take you from healing to then creating the life you want, to then living the life you want. So we can go through all phases, but not every therapist does that. Some therapists are really great with getting you to that heal stage or getting you back to maintenance or getting you back to work, getting you back into your passion. And then they drop it there. And then you may work with a coach that may, maybe a coach may help you with your business plan, or maybe a coach may help you with strategy. Depends on what type of coach that you deal with. Or like I know for you, being a divorce coach, you may have your clients may have worked with a therapist to get through the pain of going through that divorce, but now they're ready to be in a healthy relationship, and they want some particular guidance on how to get back out there in the world, so some therapists not sitting there helping you get on sites and what profiles to put, and every time you go on a date, they're like, yay! So it really just kind of depends, like you made it, or, like that. So I think it really just depends on what you're looking for. I definitely would say read a person's profile, check to see what they have online, ask questions. Coaches, by design, will not try to do work. Most of the ones that I know will not try to do work that's not fit for them. And they will definitely tell you if you need to be seeing a therapist. They'll be like, that's a little outside of my realm. And you probably should be, Yeah,
and that's actually what I do as a coach. Especially with the increase of mental, awareness, mental health awareness, I do have that on my intake form. I want to see the severity of that in your life. And I know when to say, this is not for me. This is for Melisa, but I'm help more so with, building those actionable steps to help you hit your goals, right? Your life goals, whatever those look like, from the divorce perspective, and that accountability partner, right? So it's more of that piece versus kind of the emotional well-being piece. Some touch on some of that, but if it's severe, definitely a therapist should be able to handle that.
And it's definitely overlap.
It is.
So it's definitely overlap, but I do feel like each person has like their boundaries of where they stop with certain things. Some therapists really are not comfortable with certain aspects after the healing. Like I know some therapists wouldn't be comfortable with helping you with your dating life. Like they like that. That's a stop. Like you're ready.
Right, but I think that's a great question, because some people, can get confused, and there are a lot of coaches. There's so many coaches. There's How to Play with Your Kids coach. There's so many different coaches out there, which is great. And so just knowing which one's the best fit for you and kind of doing your research, which leads us to our next question from Danielle. Really good question. How do you start your search for a therapist that would be a good fit for you? How do you know who's going to be a good fit for you? And I know you touched a little bit about this in the beginning around cultural competency. So maybe finding a therapist that has the same cultural background as you, not saying that they're going to naturally relate to everything that you're dealing with, especially as an African-American woman, but just being, finding out which one has that cultural sensitivity to where they know how to adjust their tools and resources and efforts around your unique cultural experience. So can you expound a little bit on that, Melisa, as how to find the best therapist for you?
I definitely would say, so I agree with some of what you're saying. And then I've also had clients who definitely want to go outside the realm of seeing someone that looks like them, because they don't want people in their community to ever know that this is what they were doing. I've had that. So I've had couples of all colors and races. I remember one particular couple that came to me and I was working with, and this happened to be a white couple. And one of the reasons why they wanted to work with me is because we lived in a small community at the time, and they figured I would not know some of the people that they would know. And then the therapist that they could have gone to knew were a part of their circle. So, people choose. And of course, if you're high profile, those type of things, it's reasons why people do that. I've even had couples come from other states that were in high profile positions or places and came to see me because, again, they didn't want that particular thing in their community. I would definitely say you want to go online and you just want to look. So Psychology Today, amazing. All of the different therapists come up. You can put in the little boxes what your specific issues are. They have all sorts of things. So if it's important to you that they share that same experience, like race, that's there. If it's important to you that they understand about your sexual orientation, that's a box that you can choose. If it's important to you that they experience the same experience that you had, I'm a cancer survivor. That is a box that you can choose. You can choose a box of being HIV positive if that's important to you, that the person knows those particular things. And one that I found was really interesting, and I actually had spoken to Christy about this, who helped to set all of this up, and thank you for that, was you can fat positive is one that is new. So I'm like, I'm fat positive, you guys. Like I am, So, and I love being in my own skin. And I just thought, yes. So
did you say fat positive?
Fat positive.
That's new for me.
Yes, that's a box that you can choose. So, because there are so many different aspects of why a person might go to therapy. Gotcha. And so that's why I wanted to make that difference, is because even when people come to us, so for example, our younger clients oftentimes want to see people who are closer to their age. My clients in my 40s often look for for clinicians that are like a little right below or a little right ahead. Older clients may want someone who's in their age range, who they believe can understand the lingo and get them. Like we have similar experiences. So depending on what they're working on, they may choose a different person depending on that person's experience and so forth. I will say one of the things that I love about today compared to like 20 years ago when I first started practicing, 20 years ago, it was a thing where we as therapists were like this blank slate. We didn't share all of our personal information. Like, you don't even know much about me. When I talk to people, they would ask a question like, well, Melissa, did you experience that? The common thing that we would say to someone would be like, and why would you need to know that? Like, what part of your treatment would that help? Like, literally, it was like this, where we deflect the question and put it back on the client. Mm-hmm. Now it really is a sense, and I feel like this is very Rogerian in nature. It's more of a sense of, I'm not ahead of you, I'm working with you. So it's okay for you to know about my experiences and me to share on my experiences. It's expected. Honestly, the clients that come in today, it's expected that I know something about you before I start working with you. Okay? Like, I need to know you're going to help me, and I need to know you've done this before, and I need to already like you, which is one of the reasons why I have a YouTube channel and we have the Facebook group, is because many of my clients look up our clinicians before they start working with us, which I'm excited about, because you know what you're getting into before you start the process.
I love that. And so we do have another question coming in from Jasmine. Hi, Jasmine. Said, I love Chidima's point on cultural competency. How do you as a coach and therapist maintain your cultural competency and bring that to your clients?
Well, that's a good question. I wish I had like a part 2, because I'm not quite sure exactly what she means on that end part. But I would definitely say, for me, it is treating everybody with respect, regardless of their race, gender, or sexual orientation. It is taking the time to learn a little bit more about you and not expecting you to educate me on what's going on with you. It is respecting your status, where you are in life, your decisions, or what have you, without trying to dig further to educate myself. And what I mean by that is, I was thinking recently, I was working with a transgender client, and one of the issues that they had was that previous therapists worked to gain knowledge about their community while working with them. And they felt that like this person knew nothing about them, but yet, and so therefore the sessions weren't about them and their current problem. It was about the other person being curious. And so sometimes that's what happens when it's a mixed match. It's like we're asking stuff or saying stuff that makes no sense and not in context on what's going on. So I feel like for me, it's just really working to stay in tune with my client and educating myself on my own time. That is my job to do that. And it's my job to be non-judgmental and to give you the support that you need while we're working together. So I feel like, I hope that answered your question, Jasmine.
Absolutely. And I think some coaches are very specific as to what, people group that they target. Some coaches are specialized in, African American women or Asian American women or what have you. And so they specify the expertise that they are going to provide you. So also look out for that as well, because I think that's their way of kind of maintaining that cultural competency as well, is to be transparent about the people groups that they're called to. So, but really good point, Melisa, as well, as far as being present with your client. It's good to educate yourself as far as the experiences of different cultures, but also staying present with your client, because they can educate you about them as well. I think that's a really good point. So another question, they're rolling in now. We got 15 minutes. Got some questions coming. It's getting hot in here. So questions coming in. I'm happy to see this. So for women, this is coming from, doesn't have a name. For women seeking mental health services, what recommendations do you have for those lacking financial resources? Now, I will say this. Can I brag on you a little bit, Melisa?
Oh, sure.
Because I peek on your I don't peek. I go to your YouTube channel, okay? And I love your 5-minute meditation. All right. And so for me, I look at resources like that as free therapy. I'll just be honest, free therapy that I can access when I just need a little boost in my day. And so, Melisa, would you like to share a little bit about recommendations around those that are having financial challenges?
Absolutely. I definitely would say looking into, one, you want to look into see if your job offers any services. So like your EAP, employment assistant programs. Many jobs will offer anywhere from 3 to 8 sessions, which really can kind of get you through and help you, and you have someone talking to you. Joining a group, a support group. So many times support groups sometimes they're free, and then sometimes they're like $25, $50 per session or so forth. But a lot of times they're very affordable for folks. So going online, again, you can go to Psychology Today, you can go to Good Therapy. If you are specifically looking for a therapist of color, you want to go to Black Girls Therapy. I believe that's .com or .org, but Black Girls Therapy. And you have therapists all over the country that are color. So those are places where you can go and you look and see if a person is, has a group or something like that. There may be therapists who provide a sliding scale. So like in my organization, the therapists who are newly licensed, we have a sliding scale. The therapists who are not, they don't have a sliding scale, but everybody is invited to be a part of Sister Circle. So the Sister Circle, if you're a current client, you can be a part of that. That is free. Once you're no longer a client with us, you're still in it. Yes. So you have continued support through the Sister Circle. And then again, like you said, those free resources. When I think of folks like my mom, growing up, my mom, her therapy was Oprah, Iyanla Van Zant, their books, the books that Iyanla wrote. So I feel like there is definitely help for you. It's just reaching out. Oh, and another place is your church. I remember when I was going through my divorce, my church had licensed therapists on board. And Shelly, who was my social worker from the church, literally was amazing. And that was a free resource. So as long as I was a member of that church, I got to see Shelly, and the church paid her a salary to come in and work with the members there.
No, I think that's awesome. And, we have a lot of people that really depend on their church community to assist with, their overall well-being. So I think that's a really, really good point. Also wanted to add, I was listening to Taraji P. Henson last week, and she launched this foundation called the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation. I always fumble at that word. And they actually offer free virtual therapy because their whole goal is to normalize this conversation around mental health, create the resources for African Americans, and then also create a platform for African American therapists. And so as we talked about earlier, having more of that representation out there. And so again, that's also a resource that you can tap into if you're looking for, something that's more financially feasible for you as well. So there's a question for you, Melisa.
All right.
So can you expound, this is from Jasmine, can you expand upon the sister circle? I was going to ask you that. I'm like, tell us about this sister circle again and how it could be used in conjunction with therapy.
Awesome. So the great thing about groups, right? So at one point I was providing a group at Ridgeview Hospital here in Atlanta. And so I got to work with the professionals there, and it was just like an amazing, amazing time. So these were folks who were getting individual therapy, but the group time was a place for them to be able to get the support about their issues from their peers, right? And to learn from each other and to keep each other accountable. So I feel like when you're working with your therapist, you're getting like that concrete knowledge about just you and your thing or what's happening. You're getting a way to express yourself and things like that. But in a group, it's like group think happens, and like the dynamics of you get to see yourself being reflected in others. You get to see where you've come, how far you've come from, how far you need to go, and like where you are now. And each conversation, I think, grows you in a very different way. But more than anything, is the support of other people going through the thing that you're going through.
Yeah.
That part is amazing, because a lot of times you don't have that in your family unit, especially like when you're looking to do something different. Especially like I said, when you come from like something that's dysfunctional, or it could be a very great family unit, but maybe you now are an entrepreneur, or maybe you have scars from the past that you're working through, or what have you. Or maybe you just need a community of people who just get you. That is why I feel like groups are so amazing. And it allows for you to take that work that you've done with your therapist to normalize it, so it becomes a part of your daily routines, your weekly routines, like that self-care, setting boundaries and things like that. It's a great place to learn to be accountable and to make those things regular life style choices for yourself.
Yeah, and I love the point you mentioned about seeing yourself in others. I think it's something about that, oh, I'm not the only one going through this. That's very healing, right? Yeah. And not only that, it's as a coach, I coach my clients to be able to share their story. I believe it's something about sharing your experience that's also healing. It's something about giving back and sharing what you learned from your experience to help somebody else that's also healing. So I think it's two-pronged. Not only are you getting the support, but you're giving the support. And I think that two-pronged approach is what brings about full and total healing as well. So I think the sister circle is so powerful. It's so needed. And, hopefully, how can people get access to that? How can they get your information and follow up with you if they want to be a part of the sister circle, or just want to partake of your services?
Absolutely. So you can reach us at www.visionworkscoaching.com. You can also reach me on Facebook at Melisa Alaba. And I'm sure my name is on there somewhere, but you can friend me. And we have a soulful, I think it's called Soulful Purpose-Driven Women group that focuses on self-care, creating boundaries, all those different things. And that's a free community and another space for you to be able to get support that you desire. So you can literally just reach out to me, and I'll be happy to connect you with the resources that you need.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we have one final question. We have about 7 minutes left. So again, if you have these are really good questions, by the way, ladies. So thank you so much for chiming in and helping us with this discussion. This is kind of personal to me, and then I'm sure other women are probably wanting to have this question, but how do you find time to be able to pour into or prioritize your mental well-being? I remember I had a client last week or so, and she was just sharing how she was going through anxiety and fear of things that she was going through with her ex, and retaliation and all of that kind of thing. And I asked her, I said, when's the last time you had quiet time? When was the last time you had time alone? No kids, no business, no client, no none of that, to just sit with your thoughts, and just allow your thoughts to settle just a little bit. Because I find when we're in this chaotic place and we don't have time to process our thoughts, I feel like it exasperates some of those emotional challenges that we're having. And so she's like, I haven't thought about that. I guess I'd never really had time to sit for 5 minutes by myself. right? So, Melisa, can you help us, those of us that are like that octopus that has so many competing priorities, how do we create that space where we really prioritize our mental health?
Yeah, so I like to call that my busy bee syndrome, where you have folks who really don't feel like they're productive unless they're doing a million things, right? And so you have to put yourself on the calendar. And I always tell people, look at all the things that you're doing and let's see how you can eliminate at least 3 of them. And a big part of working with me is identifying what your strengths are. And I call those your superpowers. And so once you know what your superpowers are, and you also understand what your lower level strengths are, we can eliminate a lot of stuff and get you to actually living the life that you desire and being more purposeful and intentional about the decisions that you make each day. You know, so it's very hard to like sit in the moment or even do the meditations that's 10 minutes, right? So it's like, okay, we got 24 hours and the only thing I need to do is 10 minutes of meditation. But if your day starts off with this to-do list that has like 20 things on it, you're not going to do the 10-minute meditation. So really just kind of thinking about how can I get more support, which is how we started this conversation. How can I get more support, either who I can hire or who I can exchange? That's another thing. You can't hire someone to help you with cleaning your house. Maybe you can exchange some duties with someone else that's in the house. maybe someone else can pick up 1 or 2 of those things that's supposed to happen. You can't get a babysitter. Maybe this, and I remember when I was in college, after going to Roosevelt University, one of my good girlfriends who went to Loyola University, we exchanged babysitter because I was a young mother. So I would watch her son, she would watch my daughter. And we literally did our classes so that we were on opposing nights to work it out to help each other. So I think I started doing this really early on with like figuring out I can't be in every place at every time and getting other people to help me with meeting my goals. So that's a big thing. So like if you want that 10 minutes, what can you swap out to get that 10 minutes so that you can meditate? So that you can be more present.
I like that. I like that swap out. And I think it goes back to your initial point earlier is asking for help. And I think a lot of that overwhelm and lack of time is because we're not asking for help, right? And we're trying to do it all on our own. So I think that's a wonderful point. And so we're wrapping up here. I just wanted to know, Melisa, if you had any final words before I hand it back to Dean McBride.
I first I want to just thank you for being an awesome moderator. It was so good to be with you, Chi. I call her Chi. Please let us know how we can find out about what it is that you're doing, please.
Oh, well, yeah, sure. As a life after divorce coach, I know since the pandemic and since COVID-19, there has been an increase in divorce. Just because of the stressors that we talked about earlier. And so again, I'm that coach that helps assist you getting past that pain of divorce, rebuilding your new life afterwards, and getting you prepared to love and receive love again. And so I do help with the dating portion of that as well to get you back on track, right? So you can actually contact me at www.authorchi.com. It has all my information there. And so check me out there. But thank you, Melisa, for having me on as your moderator. You are just a phenomenal woman. I know you personally. I know how transformational just being in your life has been. So these women have gotten a treat by having you in their company. And so again, thank you for your time. And back to Dean McBride. Thank you all.
Thank you guys. This was great.
Thank you both. I love this. I wish we had a whole nother hour. I could just keep listening to you talk about this. This was amazing. So thank you both for sharing so openly. I think it's especially appropriate that we've done this for Mental Health Awareness Month, because it's really a time to reflect on how we can prioritize our own mental health and acknowledge that it's okay to not be okay and how we can move forward. So it was really an honor to listen to your heartfelt advice and stories. To all of our guests, thank you for tuning in, and everybody enjoy the rest of your afternoon. So take care.
Bye. Thank you guys.